The first thing I noticed was that the coffee was still warm. Not hot, not steaming, just warm like someone had poured it 10, maybe 15 minutes ago. And right beside it on the kitchen island sat a note folded neatly beneath the mug, absorbing a slow, perfect brown ring. She hadn't written anything on the outside. No Curtis, no I'm sorry. Not even a post-it stuck on the fridge as a warning. Just that one folded piece of paper waiting for me, as if it knew I'd come home at exactly 6:42 p.m., that I'd put my keys in the bowl, that I'd hang up my jacket and sigh before turning on the light like I always do. My hand shook as I reached for it, not because I expected heartbreak, but because I didn't. And that's what terrified me the most. Inside, in her sharp, casual handwriting, the one she used when making grocery lists or jotting sarcastic birthday cards, were exactly 17 words. I want one night with someone else. Just a night. No lies, no hiding. Please understand. I stood there. I reread it 5 times. I smelled the damn coffee like somehow it could explain the message. The TV was still on in the living room, paused on the blue menu screen of some documentary about Arctic foxes. I stared at it like it might turn around and give me an answer. My wife, no, I won't say her name yet. She didn't leave a trail. No suitcase by the door. No drawers ransacked. No car missing from the driveway, just this note and the coffee and the unbearable silence of a decision she made before I got a vote. At first, I did nothing. No calls, no texts. I didn't even sit down. I just stared out the window at our empty yard, wondering how long it had been since she started planning this. Since she moved from maybe I should to I will. Since she stopped seeing me as someone she could talk to, and instead became someone she needed permission from. And here's where the story truly begins. Because after 30 minutes of standing in our kitchen like a statue, I walked into the bedroom, opened the drawer where we keep the blank stationery, and wrote 2 letters, 2 options, 2 futures, each in its own envelope. She would pick one, and when she returned, I would make sure she understood exactly what it meant to ask me for a night with another man. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. Instead, I sat at the edge of the bed with both envelopes in front of me, watching the ceiling fan spin like some ticking metronome of a marriage falling apart. I had no plan, no clever strategy, just instinct. Pain-fueled instinct wrapped in paper and sealed with the kind of stillness that only heartbreak can cause. Inside the first envelope was what she expected. Permission. One night, a pass, a silent contract that said, "Go ahead. Just make sure you come back like nothing happened." I wrote it exactly how I thought she wanted it. Polite, cold, formal. No emotion, no questions. Just a single sentence. You have your night. Afterward, we never speak of it. Inside, the second envelope was something else entirely. It was short, but not simple. 5 lines. And those 5 lines would either break her or wake her up. It read, "If you choose this, you leave the house tonight and don't come back. You don't text. You don't explain. You don't look for me tomorrow, because if you walk out that door, I'll be gone before sunrise." No threats, no dramatics, just a mirror, a reflection of what she was really asking me to become. Invisible. At around 3:30 a.m., I left both envelopes on the kitchen table. I didn't leave a note. I didn't make coffee. I just sat silently in the hallway in the dark, waiting for the sound of the door. Waiting to see which version of me she chose. When the door finally opened at 6:02 a.m., she stepped inside like someone returning from yoga. Not betrayal, still wearing her gray hoodie, hair tied up, earbuds in. She didn't see me at first, just walked into the kitchen, placed her phone on the counter and froze when she saw the envelopes. That was the moment she realized something had shifted. She stared at them, didn't touch them, just read the words written on the front in bold black ink. Choose. I watched her from the shadows of the hallway like a ghost in my own life. She looked around, maybe sensing I was nearby, maybe hoping I wasn't. Then slowly she picked up the first envelope, the one with the silent permission, and opened it. I watched her lips part, then close. Her jaw tightened. Her hand trembled ever so slightly. She didn't open the second one. She didn't need to, because I was already standing behind her now. She turned around, startled, like I wasn't supposed to be real. She whispered, "Curtis, what is this?" And all I said was, "What you asked for." She blinked. Her mouth opened to speak, but no words came. So I walked past her, grabbed my coat from the hook, took my keys off the counter, and paused in the doorway. "You can still go," I said without turning. "But if you do, you're not coming home to the same man. And maybe not to a home at all." Then I stepped outside, letting the door close quietly behind me. Behind the door, she had a decision to make, and out here, so did I. I didn't go far. I walked 2 blocks, then sat on a damp park bench overlooking a patch of grass where no one ever really played. There's something about early morning quiet, that cold, breathless pause before the world starts its routine that makes every thought louder. And mine wouldn't shut up. I kept replaying the way she looked at me. Not guilty, not angry, just confused, like she genuinely didn't understand why I didn't treat her request like a weird but forgivable moment, like asking for a weird haircut or trying a new diet, as if asking for a night with another man wasn't a red-hot brand across my chest. I sat on that bench for an hour and 22 minutes. I know because I checked my phone 17 times. But no texts came, no calls, no apology, no dramatic explanation. Just silence. So I went home. I half expected her to be gone, bags packed, car missing. But the car was there, the lights were off. The 2 envelopes were still on the table, one open, the other untouched, placed beside the now cold coffee like some failed science experiment. She was in the bedroom, still in that gray hoodie, curled on the bed with her knees to her chest, and the kind of blank stare that tells you the person's still inside, but they've gone somewhere far. I didn't say anything. I just stood in the doorway watching her, trying to read her like a page written in a language I used to understand, but had forgotten. Finally she spoke, not looking at me, not even blinking. "I didn't pick either," she said. I replied softly, "But you read them," she nodded. "I didn't think you'd actually do something like that. Give me a choice like that." I walked slowly into the room, not sitting yet. "You didn't think I'd care." Her jaw tightened. "I thought you'd try to talk me out of it, beg me to stay, be angry, but not this." That's when it hit me. She didn't come to me looking for honesty. She came looking for control. She thought by asking instead of sneaking, she'd keep the power. She'd be noble, reasonable. But I didn't give her the reaction she expected, and that rattled her more than anything. I sat down on the edge of the bed, back turned to her. "You want to know what scared me more than the note?" I asked. It was the calm. The fact that you wrote those words and left that cup of coffee like we were having a normal day. Silence. Then she whispered, "I didn't go." I turned my head slightly, but still didn't face her. "Then where were you?" "I drove, just drove. I went to the beach parking lot, sat there, Thought maybe I'd feel some kind of freedom or clarity, but it was just cold. I didn't even get out of the car. Her voice cracked at the end. Just a tiny fracture, but it was there. I couldn't do it, she added, but I wanted to. That last sentence wasn't meant to hurt, but it did, and she didn't even realize it. I stood up. That's the part that breaks me, Janice. Not that you didn't do it, but that you wanted to. Her eyes finally met mine, red and glassy. I'm broken, Curtis. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. I feel like I've been living someone else's life. I nodded, and what you wanted was to hit a reset button through someone else's bed. She flinched. Marriage doesn't come with clean slates, I added. It comes with long fights, ugly cries, and figuring it out together. Or not at all. I turned to leave the room, but she reached out barely and touched the edge of my sleeve. Are we done? I paused. For the first time, I didn't have an answer. I didn't leave the house that day. I wandered from room to room, trying to make sense of how the same walls I painted, the same couch we picked together, in the same dining table where we once laughed over burnt lasagna, now felt like someone else's home. Janice had gone back to bed, door slightly ajar. Not asleep, just hiding from the aftermath. She said she didn't choose either envelope, but that wasn't really true. Her choice was silence, stalling, buying time with guilt instead of answers. Around 11 a.m., I sat at the kitchen table, the envelope still there beside her now empty mug, and I stared at them like they might rewrite themselves if I blinked long enough. I hadn't touched her phone since the night we got married. Not out of principle, but because I never thought I had to. I didn't want to be that husband, the snooper, the paranoid one. But when I went into the living room to clean up the blankets we'd left tangled from the night before, I saw her phone buzzing face up on the cushion. No lock screen, no password prompt. Just wide open on a messaging app one didn't recognize. And there it was, a thread of messages. Not long, not flirtatious, but clear. Still thinking about last week, one said. Let me know when you get a night alone. My stomach folded in on itself. It was from someone saved as Miles Studio. My mind went blank for a second. Studio. Janice hadn't worked at her old graphic design studio for nearly a year. She said the freelance life suited her better. Less pressure, more space to think. Apparently it also gave her space to meet someone named Miles. But what hit me even harder than the messages was the timing. The last one was sent 3 nights ago, the night she came home late. Said she'd lost track of time running errands. She kissed me on the cheek and went straight to the shower. I hadn't questioned it. I was tired. I'd had a migraine. I was grateful just to see her walk through the door. I was such a fool. I clicked the name. There wasn't much history, just a few scattered exchanges, but every one of them painted the same picture. This wasn't about curiosity or one night. This was planned. Prepped. She just didn't expect to need my permission until she did. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I walked outside barefoot, pacing the back patio like a man trying to walk off a screen. I felt pathetic. Not just because she'd lied, but because even now, even with evidence in hand, a part of me still wanted to fix it. Still wanted her to choose me. Eventually, I went back inside and stood in the bedroom doorway again. She was still lying there, face turned toward the wall. Her eyes were open. I said her name once. She didn't move. Then I tossed the phone onto the bed beside her. I saw the messages. Her shoulders tensed, but she didn't sit up. I pressed. Was it just texts or more? Nothing. I waited, counted in my head. 5 seconds, 10, 15, and finally she spoke. Voice thin, almost robotic. We kissed once. I stopped it. I should have been relieved, but I wasn't, because stopping something isn't the same as never wanting it. And the night you came home late, I asked. She slowly shook her head. I met him for coffee. Nothing happened, but something was supposed to. That silence again. That heavy, swallowing silence that only liars use when they run out of ways to twist their story. I sat down at the edge of the bed, hands pressed together so tight they hurt. I gave you 2 options. You said you didn't pick either, but you did. You already did before you wrote the note. She turned toward me then, finally. Her face was pale, eyes glassy and rimmed with red. I didn't sleep with him. I know, I said, but you were ready to. That landed harder than I expected. She flinched like I'd thrown something, but I wasn't finished. Do you love him? I asked. She shook her head instantly, too fast. No, it wasn't about that. It was about me, feeling alive, seen like I mattered again. I bit my tongue so hard it bled. You used to feel all that with me, she whispered. I know. And then in the quietest voice I've ever heard her use, she said, I think I broke something I can't fix. I didn't reply, because she was right. I didn't know where else to go. The house felt like a tomb, too quiet, too heavy. Janice had retreated into herself, moving like a ghost from room to room, offering half-hearted apologies that landed with the same emptiness as a voicemail from someone you already deleted. Every time she opened her mouth to explain, it felt like another act in a play she didn't even believe in. I was tired of explanations. I needed something real. So, I called Iris. Now, I know what you're thinking. Who's Iris? Iris is Janice's older sister, the blunt, unforgiving one. The one who once told me to my face that I wasn't exciting enough for Janice, that I was a man made of shit. She wasn't cruel exactly, just brutally honest in the way people are when they think the truth is more important than kindness. We hadn't spoken in over a year. Last time we did, she accused me of shrinking her sister, whatever that meant. But I knew Iris knew things, always had. When she picked up, her voice was slow, cautious. Curtis, I didn't ease into it. She asked me for permission to sleep with someone else. Then I found out she'd already made plans, already kissed him. And I think she was hoping I'd just say yes so she wouldn't feel guilty. There was a pause. Not the kind that happens when someone is shocked. More like the kind when someone realizes something inevitable has finally happened. She told you, Iris said. Finally. That stopped me cold. Wait, you knew? Another silence, then a long breath. She didn't tell me everything, but I knew something was off. She called me crying last week. Said she felt like she was suffocating. Said she didn't know who she was anymore. I asked if it was about you. She said no, but come on. What else would it be about? I gripped the phone tighter. Did she mention his name? No, Iris said slowly. But she did say something that struck me. She said, I think I'm sabotaging the one person who's always been in my corner, and I don't know why. My throat burned. I wanted to scream or laugh or hang up, but instead, I asked the only question I hadn't allowed myself to ask anyone else. Do you think she ever loved me? Iris sighed. A deep, heavy sound like she was debating whether I could handle what she really thought. Yeah, Curtis. I think she did. But I think she loved you in a way that was more about needing to be rescued than building something real. You were her calm, her anchor, but some people mistake calm for boredom. And anchors, they start to feel like weights. That analogy hit me like a brick, and it made sense, too much sense. I had always been the safe choice, the stable one, the one who remembered to change the air filters and kept the freezer stocked. But safety doesn't excite everyone, and somewhere along the line, I think Janice started to confuse steadiness with stagnation. I thanked Iris and hung up, feeling more hollow than ever. I didn't go back home right away. I drove aimlessly for nearly an hour, passing all the places we used to go. The movie theater with the broken marquee, the diner with the sticky counters and burnt coffee, the walking path where she once told me she wanted to name our imaginary daughter Ruby. And then I did something I didn't plan. I drove to the address I found in her messages. Miles's studio. It was in a rundown plaza, tucked between a vape shop and a gym with cracked windows. The sign out front was barely hanging on, midline creative, and peeling black letters. I didn't go inside. I just sat across the parking lot and watched. And then, just as I was about to drive away, I saw him. He walked out with a coffee in hand, laughing with some guy who handed him a clipboard. He looked so ordinary. Not tall, not movie star handsome, just average, but confident, relaxed, like someone who never once questioned whether he deserved attention. And then I saw something that turned my blood cold. He pulled out his phone, looked at it, smiled, and typed something quickly before sliding it into his back pocket. I didn't need to check Janice's phone to know who he was texting. I was still right there, still invisible, and still letting it happen. But that was about to change. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into a motel 15 minutes outside town, one of those places that tries to hide its age with fresh paint and new key carts. But the carpets still smell like sadness and cleaning chemicals. I didn't bring anything with me, just my wallet, my car, and the clothes I've been wearing since yesterday, which now felt like a second skin I didn't want anymore. I left my phone in the glove box, silenced, because I didn't want to know if she was trying to reach me. I wasn't ready to be Curtis, the husband, the fixer, the forgiver. I wasn't even sure I wanted to be Curtis at all. That night I sat on the stiff motel mattress and stared at the ceiling. The fan above me buzzed faintly like it was tired of spinning. Everything felt wrong. My hands, my heart, the weight of my own name. I couldn't stop thinking about the look on Miles's face. So casual, so light. Like the man who helped fracture my life didn't even realize he'd done anything worth hiding. Maybe that was the worst part, that he hadn't taken anything. It was Janice who handed it to him willingly. And still, I couldn't hate her. I couldn't find that clean kind of anger other people talk about, the righteous fury that lets you walk away without blinking. Instead, what I felt was a kind of slow, rotting sadness, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes everything feel colder than it is. And then I thought of those words Iris said, that maybe I'd been her anchor, and maybe she'd been trying to cut the rope, not because she didn't love me, but because she wanted to drift. I'd spent so many years keeping her steady that I didn't even notice the tide pulling her away. I woke up the next morning feeling like I'd been flattened. I didn't even recognize my reflection in the mirror. Pale, sunken eyes, the stubble of someone who forgot what a morning routine even was. I looked like a man who had lost everything except the echo of what he used to be. And for the first time, I wasn't sure I wanted her back. Not because I didn't love her, but because I couldn't keep loving someone who didn't know how to return it. I couldn't keep being the man who watched his own life happen to him. Around noon, I drove to a diner I hadn't been to in years, a place I used to go before Janice. Before, I was the version of me shaped to fit her life. I ordered pancakes and eggs and sat in a booth alone, pretending for a while that I was just another man on a road trip, not someone unraveling at the seams. Then, as I sipped the watery coffee, I took out a napkin and started writing, not to her, but to myself. It started with a question. Who was I before all this? It hit me how much of my identity had been wrapped around keeping someone else comfortable, how I'd slowly erased parts of myself over the years. Hobbies I stopped doing, friends I stopped calling, dreams I stopped chasing, all for the sake of stability, for the illusion of a forever that she didn't even believe in anymore. And in that diner, under the glow of a flickering light bulb and the low hum of bad radio, I realized something terrifying and liberating at once. I didn't want to go back to who I was. I wanted to become someone new, someone who didn't need to beg for love, someone who didn't wait for permission to matter, someone who didn't write 2 envelopes hoping his wife would pick the one that didn't hurt him. I paid the bill in cash and left a $20 tip for a waitress who hadn't smiled once, but still refilled my coffee without asking. And then I got in my car, turned my phone back on, and saw 6 missed calls from Janice. 2 voicemails, 1 text. The message said, "I need to see you. Please, I need to explain something. It's not what you think." But this time, I didn't call back because whatever she had to say, I wasn't sure it mattered anymore. It took me 4 hours to decide whether to meet her. 4 hours of staring at that single text like it held a code I wasn't smart enough to crack. "Please, I need to explain. It's not what you think." I kept hearing those words in her voice, but I couldn't attach them to a version of her I trusted anymore. I didn't even know what explanation could possibly fix the crack between us. And yet, when I finally pulled into the driveway later that evening, my hands trembling on the steering wheel, I realized I hadn't come home to forgive. I'd come for closure. The house looked the same porch light, same chipped garden gnome in the flower bed she once said was creepy cute. But it all felt unfamiliar, like walking into a childhood home after someone else had moved in. When I opened the front door, I expected silence or tears. Instead, she was already waiting in the living room, standing by the fireplace, her arms crossed like she was holding herself together by force. She didn't rush toward me, didn't cry, just looked at me like she was seeing something new or maybe something lost. "I didn't expect you to come," she said softly. "I almost didn't," I replied, taking slow steps into the room. There was a long pause, the kind that stretches into your bones and forces you to breathe slower just to stay calm. "I need to show you something," she said. I didn't answer. I just waited. She picked up her phone from the coffee table and unlocked it, this time deliberately, then handed it to me. A gallery was open. Dozens of photos all taken within the last month. And then she said something that knocked the air from my lungs. "They weren't for him, Curtis. They were for me." I blinked, not understanding. I looked at the photos, mostly selfies. No lingerie, no provocative angles. Just her standing alone in front of mirrors, in cafes, on walks, in bookstores. But in every photo she was alone, not smiling, just watching herself through the lens, like she was trying to find something. I started taking them when I realized I didn't recognize my own reflection anymore. She said it wasn't about Miles. It was never about Miles. I looked up from the screen slowly, unsure whether this was some twisted justification or an honest confession. I thought I wanted him, she continued, but what I really wanted was to be seen again, to feel like I existed in my own life. You were always so calm, so steady, and I mistook that for you not needing me. And when I didn't feel needed, I started chasing anything that made me feel alive, even if it was wrong. I handed her the phone back without a word. She stepped forward, voice breaking now. Curtis, I didn't sleep with him. I won't. I swear to you, I think I wanted to scare you. I think I wanted to prove to myself I still mattered. I stared at her, not with rage, not even sadness, just something colder. Detachment. You did matter, I said. You just stopped believing me when I said it. I know, she whispered. And that's the part one can do. I nodded slowly, more to myself than to her. You wanted to be seen. But I was right there, Janice. Every day I saw you. I was the only one who ever really did. A tear rolled down her cheek, but I didn't move toward her. You said you didn't choose either envelope, I continued. But you did. You chose the version of yourself that needed to be adored by someone else. And in doing that, you told me what I was worth. She opened her mouth to protest, but I stopped her with a single shake of my head. Whatever comes next, it won't be what we had. It can't. She sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, silent, as if she finally understood that some things can't be explained, only accepted. And then I walked into the hallway toward the bedroom, not to pack, but to retrieve one last thing I needed before I could make a final decision. She followed me with her eyes, but not her feet. She didn't ask what I was doing. Maybe she already knew. The box I pulled from the bedroom closet was small, unremarkable. It was where I kept old receipts, expired warranties, and things I told myself I'd get to someday. At the bottom, wrapped in an envelope yellowed at the edges, was a folded letter I'd written to myself on our 5th anniversary. I don't know why I saved it. Maybe I always knew I'd need to read it again. The letter was simple, a list, really. 5 things I loved about Janice. 5 things I promised myself I'd never stop doing. Some were trivial. Keep noticing when she wears new earrings. Others were big. Don't stop asking her questions, even when she seems quiet. I read it twice, my heart aching with the memory of the man who wrote those words. Hopeful, wide-eyed, still believing in permanence. I walked back into the living room and handed the letter to her. She looked at me, puzzled. I wrote this years ago, I said quietly. Back when we still believed we were writing one story together. She unfolded it with trembling hands, reading silently. Her lips quivered on the 3rd line. When she looked up, tears slipped down her cheeks, unhidden this time. You still care, she whispered. I nodded. I always did. That was never the question. She wiped her face, still holding the letter as if it were made of glass. So what now? I sat down across from her, feeling the gravity of this final moment. Now we stop pretending we didn't go too far, and we start deciding if there's still something worth saving. She blinked, startled. You're not leaving. I took a breath. I was ready to, I still might, but not out of spite, not to hurt you. I just needed to remember who I was without this weight on my chest. And now that I do, I can see things clearly. I see the hurt. I see your fear. I see the places we both stopped trying. And I see that maybe, just maybe, we don't have to throw the whole thing away. She nodded slowly, cautiously. I want to fix this. I'll do the work, Curtis. I swear to you. I'll go to therapy. I'll tell you everything. No more hiding, no more stories. I studied her face, searching for that version of her I first fell in love with. She wasn't the same woman anymore, and I wasn't the same man. But maybe that wasn't a bad thing. Maybe we needed to lose each other a little to remember what it meant to hold on. I don't need perfection, I said. I just need honesty. And you'll have to earn that back day by day, word by word. She stood up and crossed the room slowly. Then, carefully, she knelt in front of me and took my hands. I'll do it, she said. Not because I'm afraid to lose you, but because I finally understand what it means to deserve you. And for the first time in what felt like years, I believed her. We didn't fix everything overnight. We didn't pretend things hadn't cracked. But we started again, small steps, long talks, real honesty. No more sleeping in silence or avoiding each other's eyes. A month later, we planted a garden in the backyard, just a small one, a row of flowers she always said she loved but never had time for. Every morning, I'd water the soil, and she'd join me with coffee in hand, still in her robe. We didn't talk about Miles. We didn't need to. That chapter was closed because we were writing a new one. Not perfect, but ours. And for the first time in a long, long time, that was